Hendersonville, Tennessee. And so when the restoration on this house started, Joanne lived in this house, and she actually worked with Arkansas State University, came in and said, Mama had the piano here. This picture was here. She had a table there. Anyway, she placed everything like it was when the family lived here. So that was a good thing to have her on hand for that. And then there is Johnny there in his military, and I'm guessing that's somewhere 1951, 1955. I know he got out in 55. I don't know the exact date. And then here's his older brother in the Navy, and there's Miss Cash right there in front of the house, and then Joanne and Tommy. The piano here, it's got a story to it. The Miss Cash, Carrie, I think from what I have read, that this was actually a wedding present to her when she got married, from her father and mother, I think, because she could play piano. Couldn't read a musical note, save her soul, but she could play by ear. And the hymnals here, these are hers. The Cash family wanted them here on this piano. But anyway, the Cash family had this when they moved here in 1935. So when the Cash family left and went to Hendersonville, they donated this to the First Baptist Church, where Miss Cash played piano and Johnny sang in the choir. And they donated it to the church. Well, the area was dying. People were moving out and leaving because, like I say, the dynamics of farming had changed, and you had to get big or get out, and a lot of them couldn't afford to do that. And so Miss Cash, after Johnny had made it big, and he had built a house in Hendersonville, which she's been there, and he built a house there, and then he called his mother and told him, he said, we are going to build you a house, so come on out. So she donated this to the First Baptist Church, and then the First Baptist Church, after it died, they donated it to the community center. Well, a lady on the chamber up here was over the community center, and she seen a lot of people in there that were Jerry Lee Lewis wannabes, how they bang on them. Well, she knew the history of this, and she didn't like it. So she took it to her house, and it sat there for years and years and years. Arkansas State University has a meeting with the chamber up here, and they tell them that we want to do this, and like y'all's participation and everything. And then she said, I got Miss Cash's piano. Wow. So that was pretty interesting.
That is.
And so that's part of it. So that's a good story. Mm-hmm. And there's several good stories from here. Several good ones. Actually, you should have seen her when she got to play her mama's piano after all these years. They have that in a picture. Over here is another picture of the family on the front porch. And this Miss Cash, Mr. Cash, and the oldest son, Roy, and his wife and children. And the old dog, Ray. Mr. Cash supposedly didn't like dogs, and his name was Ray, so I think someone in the family named the dog Ray. They had a sense of humor there. And when you have 9 people in a house like this, you better have a sense of humor.
So did they have that many living here?
It was I would imagine at different, one got up, the 2 daughters were actually older, and they married off.
Yeah.
And but now when they moved here, Johnny was 3, and then these 2 came along later, so I don't think all of them were here at the same.
Yeah.
And then there was Jack. Jack is the one that was killed, died in an accident. He was also here. And that is his picture there in the corner.
Oh, okay.
That's Jack Dempsey Cash.
And he was how old?
He was 14.
When the accident?
This was in May of 1944 when he had the accident. And Johnny actually helped dig his grave. And he did it barefoot because it was raining and he didn't want to run his shoes. And attended the funeral barefoot.
Is
This is, I'm just moving you out.
That's okay. I just moved to the wrong spot every time. So
It's a small place.
that's all right.
Bear with me, please. This is, like I say, that was Jack. This is Joanne, Johnny, and then this is Louise. Louise has a really, he goes into the Navy. So his ship that he's on in the South Pacific is sunk. His parents get a letter saying missing in action and presumed dead. So Louise later marries another man, has a child, and then after the child's born, she divorces this guy. And I think she moves back home. I'm not completely sure on that. I haven't found anything substantiated, but so the end of the war is over. Well, this guy that was supposedly dead had been in a Japanese prisoner of war camp all this time, Mr. Garrett. He gets home at night on a Sunday morning, and he knows that Louise is going to be in church with her mom and dad. Walks in, finds her, gets her. They get married
Oh,
and live together until they both pass away.
really?
Beautiful.
Wow.
Beautiful story. The radio, they did not have electricity. So the radio was operated by the big 6-volt batteries you see on the old cars. You know, they were all 6-volt, the old cars and trucks and things. So that's what they'd use. And, from what I've read, Mr. Cash stayed on Johnny all the time for running the battery down. I'm sure he had some expletives in there to go along with it.
Yeah, we was reading an article in Nashville that said, well, he limited
15 minutes.
15 minutes
15
a day.
minutes, yeah. And you could only get one radio station. That was West Memphis, south of here. Now, the sewing machine, that is not Miss Cash's sewing machine, but it's one similar that she had. And, but she had to sew all the girls' clothes and all of that. And so, and if you'll look above you there's, I hope it does.
So was
And-
it ever painted in here, or?
The house was never painted.
Okay.
They never did paint it. But if you'll see little white flecks. That's where they went to the other house and got the lumber. I mean the wood, and then they turned it around and used
To
it.
restore it. Like
Yeah. Now
Cash
it's the
had.
same. It's the same wood that was in 1935 that they cleared here. So that's. They, like I say, they just turned it around to the side that wasn't exposed to the elements. Now the linoleum here, this is not original to the house. This was put in sometime. This actually came from another house. If you'll notice the ridges in it, and the wood runs this way. So, but this came from another house. But the ones in the dining room and the bedrooms, they are original, and we've got them pegged somewhere around 1950s when they actually did this. And the Cashes sold the farm in 1955, so it probably wasn't early around that time. Through there, but if you walk to the left there, that bedroom, to your left is where Mr. and Miss Cash, another house that was built in 1935. And they sent them off and had them redone, and they look brand new. But they did not have plumbing. They would heat their water outside on a wood fire and bring it in, throw it in the bathtub, and everybody took a bath in the same water.
The cleanest one first, right?
The youngest.
The youngest.
The
What's
youngest
the
went
pot?
first, and the oldest went last.
What's
Now, the bed to the right, the bedroom on the right, and the bed on the right, that is where Johnny and Jack slept. That's their bed. The bed to the left is where his older sisters slept. The picture above the bed there, that's a replica, but Johnny seen that picture and he tore it out of a magazine, and then he took it to the agri shop and built a frame for it. And if you step, and on the bed, one of his favorite books there is The Lone Ranger. I used to watch him every Saturday morning, but he had to read about
I'm
it.
gonna look at that picture.
What's that little pot in there? Is that the urine?
That was the toilet.
That was the toilet, right? They
Chamber
didn't
pot.
have a 5-gallon buckets back then, did they?
I don't know. I wasn't there. We're getting it fixed. But this is a replica of the cabinet that Johnny made for his mother. Now we have the real one in the 2-story building, which is another part of the tour. I forgot to tell y'all about that when if you want to go back. That shows you the old cabinet that he actually made for his mother. And she wanted it here so she could use it every day. And she did.
Well, you make that in school probably?
Agri shop, the same shop that Jack was injured in.
Okay.
Oh, he was actually injured at that shop.
Yeah,
It's not-
Agri
it's not-
shop, yes.
it's
Yeah,
not-
it was not a sawmill.
It's not the thing that's the
So
movie.
that's
case.
Hollywood.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
No,
interesting.
it was the Agri shop at school, and it was on a Saturday. And what he was doing, he was cutting fence posts to make extra money. Now, he wasn't making the money for himself. He was making, you chop ice, put it in there and roll your pastry out, it wouldn't stick to it. Now, I've never used one. I've never used one, so I don't know. But I would sure hate to get hit in the head with it by Henry White. And I've made several wives angry.
I think that's some refrigerator.
Yeah.
Now, Miss Cash had to cook on the wood burning stove, and you know that's an art. If you can cook on one of those, you can do anything. Now the pressure cooker, they were encouraged to have large gardens, and what they did, they canned anything excess that they had. And there was a little store in the circle up there, and you could take your extra canned goods, put them in the store, and they would sell them for you from surrounding areas. People would come in and buy them. They knew this was a good place to come and buy their stuff. And so they would make an extra little money doing that. If you'll notice the curtains and the aprons there, right here, these are all made out of flour sacks. Martha White, and she makes good biscuits. I know. Real good biscuits. Take that old sorghum hot butter. Oh Lord, that's so good for your diabetes. But anyway, now the pantry there, that is pretty close to what you would find at that time when they were here. The little Dutch Girl canister or cleanser up there, that is old. And the old Lux dishwashing stuff, that's pretty old stuff there. And they had a churn, because I know they had cows and stuff in them. Now right here, this sink is original to the house. It was here in 1935, and they sent it out and had it redone like the ones in the bath in there. I personally would not have done that. I would have left it just like it was, but they wanted to do that. Now, right there is where Miss Cash had a real, I guess a revelation, you might say. She was standing here one day, and Johnny and his daddy were outside, just right outside the window, and they were splitting wood and stacking it. They wanted it close to the back door, because that's where they brought their wood. And they had their fire pit right here. Johnny was singing, and Miss Cash stopped and just started paying attention to it. She's heard him sing a lot of times in the choir and all that. But what was different was Johnny got older, and his voice got deeper. And that's what she was listening to. And that's when it dawned on her that he was going to be a singer. Now, she just didn't know he was going to be a superstar, but she knew he was going to be a singer. So, with that, Miss Cash started taking in laundry from other people. She would do their washing, ironing, folding, all of that to earn extra money. And there was a teacher in the little town where I lived. She taught music and choir, and she wanted her to help Johnny with his voice. That's how destined she was on this. First lesson. The lady brings Johnny back, and she says, "Miss Cash, keep your money, and don't let anybody change that voice." So they were both spot on. They were spot on. And it happened right there where Miss Cash decided she was going to do it. And she's actually the one that really pushed him. She pushed him in. Mr. Cash was, "Get your butt out of bed, let's go to work."
Yeah.
Miss Cash was, "Let's play the piano and sing something." At that time, we were in the Korean conflict, but we were more worried about Russia. And we kept B-29s in the air 24/7 and loaded. And he actually was the radio operator that stayed in contact with them. And so he had a high security clearance, and they didn't want him off the base. Maybe, Russian spies or something, I guess, I don't know. But anyway, they wanted him on the base. So he felt like he was in prison. And that's when he wrote Folsom Prison. But he never got published until 57, 58.
It makes a lot of sense.
1958. Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, another tidbit. while he was in the Air Force there, he had a buddy, and when he would they'd get up in the morning, they bunked. I guess they bunked pretty close together, and this guy would tell him he'd grab his boots, you know, the boots they had to wear, and he'd grab them, and he always referred to his boots as blue suede shoes. He said, hey, you know, man, don't step on my blue suede shoes. Well, Johnny remembered that, and when he got to Sun Studios, and there was Carl Perkins and Elvis and Jerry, and they were all there. Johnny told Carl and them, he said, you know, there's a song in that. And Carl Perkins took it and he went with it. And Elvis Presley, you know, he did it, he made it bigger than Carl Perkins, but that's what it was about, combat boots. Just a nickname for combat boots.
Interesting.
Yeah, and Johnny also, you know, when he, his first music, he would use the rhythm of the code that he used to stay in contact with the planes. He used that rhythm in some of his music from that. And so that was interesting. Yeah. So if you look into the dining room there's a good picture of Johnny and the two youngest. And I'm guessing that's 1954, 1955. That's a pretty good picture of them. And if you look, the old rice box there, I'd like to have that right now. Man, could you imagine getting a keg of beer in there and having that spigot on the outside of it?
So that table setting.
The glassware on that table, the Cash family wanted that here. That is theirs. They wanted it in here. They donated it.
That's such an ornate table.
That is as close as they could come to
What they had.
and I guess they still have it in Hendersonville. They didn't want to let it go, but they said Miss Cash was real crazy about that table, like she was her piano. And it was, and like I say, they looked for it, and they found it.
Yeah.
Like the couch and chair in the living room there, Joanne helped. They were trying to find the exact, something as close to what they had, and when they found that, she said that's the almost identical couch that they had back in the day. And they found that in California, had it shipped out here.
I imagine that was pretty fancy for back in the day.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, and you know, they were,
It could have been Sunday.
yeah. And if you look in the window, there's a sign, and you can see that green is pointed up, and it says 75 on it. Well, that's the Iceman. When he would run the route, he would look into the window. He'd be parked right out there where we are, and he could look in the window and see that sign. And he knew green was pointed up. He said, well, they need 75 pounds. He'd bring a 75-pound bottle of ice in, put it in the ice box. When I first came here, I said refrigerator, and I got corrected real quick by an elderly lady. She said, no, that's wrong. And boy, she was doing that too.
That's a sure enough icebox.
Yeah, she said, I've had to use them. But the ice man would run 3 times a week, and no one had to be here. The doors left open. He'd see the sign. He'd come in, throw it in. And right here, look on the buffet. Any of you ever used one of these? You know, hog killer's time. You'd have your hogs out there. You'd scald them in the hot water, and then you'd take this to get the hair off the skin.
Scraper?
Yeah, because you don't want hair in your pork rinds. I know I don't. I have a lot of people, I tell them that here in the state of Arkansas, our state dessert is pork rinds, hot sauce, and cold beer. And some. And so they had to move the house, take a backhoe, and dig 8 feet. And then they filled it in with sand, and then they poured concrete on top of that. And then they put the pilings back in and covered it up with dirt. Most of the restoration money went there.
Oh, okay.
That's where it went. And here is the old Smokehouse. You know, when they butcher their hogs, they would salt them. They put them on trays and salt them down to keep the moisture, pull the moisture out of the meat, keep bacteria from setting up. Then after that was done, they would hang the meat in there on hooks, and you had a container in there, and you'd build a fire in there. And you use stuff like oak, hickory, or pecan, woods like that, to smoke the meat. And this went on for quite a while. And you could walk out, and the smoke would be coming out the door, out the roof, all over the place. but it was smoke to me. And that was my job on the farm, keeping the fire going in the smokehouse. And I got fired from it because I built too big a fire. I like big fires. And the business office, floor, which I'm sure they didn't have that because we had to put concrete floor on this, and so we could anchor to it so it wouldn't end up over in the field when a high wind comes through. But that's pretty much. And Joanne, the youngest daughter, she came out and said, "Yeah, here's where the smokehouse, the toilet, and then the chicken house." She was here. She used them and everything. Now these buildings were not here. They were gone. Storms and everything got them. But what they did do, they went to the houses, some houses we had left that were actually still built from the same time, and got wood from some of their buildings and built. You can see that's old wood there. And they built the smokehouse and then all of this. Now the chicken coop is, you know, you could walk there and get you a slab of bacon and all your eggs you wanted. The pigeonholes back here is where the laying hens would lay their eggs, and the other hens that were young and weren't laying quite yet, they would just roost right here on these. And in bad weather, you could drop them down, like in wintertime, drop them down so they'd, you know, be out of the. Some farm equipment, pretty similar to what they would be using. The two rates, you know, if they grew a little alfalfa for their mules and cattle. And then we have a 2-row planter and then a sickle mower over it.
Rough life. It was.
Yeah, it was tough. And now, this inside the fence here is just a little less than an acre. So you can figure the farm was 40 times this size. Straight back and a little to the on each side here, and then straight back that way.